Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with Westworld, Season 2, Episode 4, Review. Alright, so overall I thought this episode was a little bit of a slower paced episode. They kind of, there wasn't as much action, of course, compared to last week, as we had that kind of like big battle there, right, with the hosts and the humans going down and stuff like that. So I thought this one was just, they kind of slowed it down a little bit. Of course, we saw, I would say probably the main focus was probably on William in this episode, which we didn't see last episode, and then we had no Dolores this episode. So they're continuing to stick with that sort of trend in kind of selecting certain storylines to follow in each episode, and then kind of forgetting about others. For example, of course, Maeve and Dolores neither of them have any screen time in this whole episode, but William and Bernard are focused on, a lot. Right, so they've kind of decided to do that with this season, or at least so far in the season, and I don't know. In my opinion, I don't really like it. I feel like it'd be more effective if they just did all the storylines in every episode, and then maybe shorten the time down a little bit. But and then also this episode was like an hour and 15 minutes. This one was a really long one. Again, I'm not sure exactly why. I think there was some scenes in here that we could have, you could have just left out, you know what I mean? Like kind of throwaway scenes that weren't really important. So I mean, there's that, but overall, yeah, a pretty good episode. I'm really loving this season, and yeah, for sure. So we'll get into a little bit of a recap here, and then towards the end of the review, we'll get to a rating, favorite character, and some more overall thoughts to kind of wrap this episode up. I would like to apologize for this one being so late. Last week, I just felt, I wasn't home, the majority of the time. I was here and there and back and there, and, so, I was just really busy last weekend or last week, and I just really didn't have any time to do reviews. I didn't even watch the episodes. So I've watched the episodes, of course, now. So the Terror review should be out after this one, maybe tomorrow, but hopefully tonight. And then Westworld, obviously, will be now. And The Crossing, I'm still not sure if I'm going to be continuing reviews. I may just wait and then come back for the finale and kind of do a recap of the season instead of doing week-to-week reviews, as it has been canceled now. And I suspect that quite a few viewers will probably be, no longer watching the show week to week. And so, of course, that would affect, if I'm doing reviews and, the show isn't, as popular, maybe it's not worth doing reviews for. But honestly, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good show. But obviously now it's been canceled. So, if people were giving it a shot, they're probably not gonna, be as willing to give it a shot, anymore. So, anyways, yeah. So this season, I'm really enjoying it. I really like the storylines, and they brought a really interesting storyline into this episode. Very interesting, actually. And I still don't understand the full thing of it. And now, if you do, please let me know. I feel like I did miss some things in this episode. I actually watched the episode back, almost the full episode, again, to understand what exactly was all going on here. And I did, connect some things actually in the second watch that I didn't see in the first one. So yeah, but by all means, if you see something that I don't, or I missed something, please let me know, and then, we can of course discuss. So anyways, let's get into the recap now for episode 4 of season 2. So Clementine takes Bernard out to a canyon. We saw him getting dragged off last episode, and now kind of just picking up right from that spot, and just resuming right there and going, seeing what happens. So Clementine drags him out there, and puts him right outside this cave, right? This sort of cavern there. And all of a sudden he hears sounds, right? So he hears sounds in this cave. So he enters, he starts walking in, and he finds Elsie. So this was a big surprise to me. I didn't think we were ever going to see Elsie in the show again. Maybe people who are bigger fans than I am of the show, knew that she was going to be back, but honestly, I had no idea. So if you knew, I mean, good for you. I really, wish I would have known, but I had no idea. So yeah, really big surprise there to see Elsie back, but she's back from season 1, and she's kind of laying in the cave there on the floor as a prisoner, right? And of course, we know that Bernard was the one to do it to her, right? Of course, Ford forced, Bernard to do it, but he still was the one who, took Elsie to that cave and, made her a prisoner and all that stuff. So really, just a crazy connection here, connecting back season 1 to season 2. So Elsie tells him, of course, yep, like I said, that he was the one who left her there and choked her out, right? So she's obviously pissed at him at this point because, of course, she still thinks he's a human at this point. She's mad at him. She doesn't understand what had happened, right? So she doesn't know, of course, Bernard was controlled, and he really didn't do that, voluntarily. So he actually starts struggling then, and he's losing fluid again, right? So that's a constant problem with Bernard here. And again, episode 1, we saw him refill with a little bit of fluid, but by now it's pretty much, gone again because, he shot himself in the head, right? Back in season 1. And so, of course, that's kind of messing up all the stuff in his brain there, or his brain, right? The maid brain, developed technology. So then Elsie picks up the tablet and finds out that he is a host. And this was a chilling moment for me, honestly, to see Elsie kind of figure this out. I think she's the first human, other than Ford, to figure out that he's a host. So it was kind of a chilling moment for me, at least. I just thought it was a really cool scene, to see her actually figure it out and pick up this tablet and see Bernard on there and being able to control him. And she thought she thought he was a human this whole time. And then she says, it's not possible. You can't be a host. You have a backstory. And then right away she notices, she's like, you have a backstory. And just right there with that line, she finds out, she's like, oh, okay. Right? Because all the hosts have backstories, and Bernard's backstory is exactly like that. So it kind of comes to her back, and she thinks about it a little bit more, and it makes a lot of sense to her, right? So really crazy stuff there. So she temporarily fixes him, but he's still in need of more fluid, so she kind of adjusts some settings and stuff, and gets him okay for now, but he needs more. So then he starts to see himself walking into the cave and finding a secret switch to a nearby facility. So this was really interesting throughout the episode. I think he started to see himself and see these memories playing out in front of him almost. So that was really, really cool. I really did enjoy that, and I liked the way that it didn't make it too confusing. Like, the past Bernard was wearing a different color suit, or at least there was less dust on it, right? So we were able to tell the difference between the two. Sometimes the show doesn't do quite a good job of that because they're trying to confuse you, but in this one they did. So he's able to find the secret switch, and they're able to take the elevator down to this kind of facility underground. Very interesting though, the way he finds it, of course. And then they find a lab, and then she gives him the needed cortical fluid, and we see another one of those creepy drones, right? The white, drones, and Elsie actually shoots it down because she's just scared out of her mind or creeped out by it, and shoots it down and deals with it. So that was interesting there, and those are really creepy, I have to say. Those are, next level, right? The hosts, at least, they kind of look like humans. You're like, okay, whatever. But these ones are really creepy. So, anyways, so then we see Bernard wakes up. She gives her the fluid, or she gives him the fluid, and then of course, he kind of dozes off, or turns off for temporarily. So he wakes up and he starts to remember why he came here before. Right, so we hear that his memories are still very confused, of course, right, because of the shot to the head, right, so his memories are all sort of out of whack here, and he can't process which is, and he says, which is now, what is the past, what has happened, right? So all these memories are kind of jumbled together, and that's of course why the writers are continuing to use this and to trick us with the timeline of the show here, because Bernard's memories are not, in chronological order right now. So that's the way they're kind of doing with the show, and confusing us and trying to screw with our minds a little bit, like the show always does. So anyway, so he remembers why he came here, but he says they were not making hosts here. Right? That's not what they were doing here. They were doing something else. And so then, Elsie says, then what were they making? Right? And that's a big question. Of course, it gets answered a little bit later on. So we see the girl from last episode that washed up on shore, who was from the Bengal tiger hunting little sector there, right? Or that different park, I guess. And I heard people calling it the Taj. The Taj Park, I think it was. The one where she was at, the Bengal tiger one. I just called it the safari, but I don't think that was quite accurate. But I think people are calling it the Taj Park, at least. At least that's what I've heard. But anyway, so she's brought to this forest where the Ghost Nation are holding the humans prisoners, pretty much, right? So this was interesting, and of course, again, like last episode, we left off as the Ghost Nation, were right, standing above her, and that's kind of where we ended, right? So we see the continuation of that, and then the guard Ashley Stubbs is also there. I had to look up his name; I totally forgot it, but he's actually, I would say, he's kind of a relevant character in this season. Last season he wasn't really in it that much, but this season he's, I would say, pretty relevant. He's in almost every episode so far. So he's also there with her. Right, so this is the proof that we know that this doesn't fit with the current timeline, right? So because we know that Ashley in the current timeline is along with Strand and Bernard, right? Bernard, I think, or no, Bernard is now with Clementine. It's so confusing, the whole timeline here. But we know that Ashley is with Strand, at least right now, or with Charlotte. So we know that it's out of line. It's not, with the current timeline that's going on right now. So then we see the girl escape when they are taken to the shore. She's, kind of a badass. She, hits one of the Ghost Nation down and then is able to run away. And then this was a weird moment that I still don't quite understand. So if you saw this and you kind of understood what happened, please let me know, because this just really, went in, I saw it and that's about it. I didn't really connect to anything. So Ashley's held with a knife at his throat, right, by these Ghost Nation guys, and they tell him an important message, and it didn't seem that important. I think they said something about death, right? So they said something about death. They they tell him, they kind of whisper it in his ear, and then suddenly all the hosts are gone, and the humans just remain, and they're all just kind of kneeling on the ground, but all the Ghost Nation hosts and everyone else is gone, right after they tell Ashley this. So just really confusing. Again, what does this mean? Of course, Ford it's his whole storyline, and he's kind of engineered this to happen. But why do they tell Ashley this? Does that actually mean more than what I think it means right now? Is Ashley going to bring that back to the rest of the crew? Why would the Ghost Nation hosts just leave these humans to be after they held them prisoner for so long? A lot of questions there. I'm hoping that we're going to get a little bit of an explanation next episode for that one. So we see William. So I thought there was a significant focus on him this episode. Probably the most, actually. Probably more than Bernard. But we didn't actually see him until we saw one scene in the very beginning, and then we didn't even see him again till like the 25-minute mark, I would say, of the episode. So there was quite a big stretch there. But anyways, William and Lawrence go back to his hometown, and, right away, the Confederalos find them and attack them, and then they say, or the colonel says, they tell them that they were double-crossed by Wyatt. So, this is after the battle, obviously, so this connects the timeline here, and I just keep referring to the timeline, because I'm trying to piece things together here, and, keep it in order, so that we know what's happening, and, what's happening next, and all that stuff, right? It just makes it easier to understand. So they say they were double-crossed by Wyatt. Of course, they're talking about the battle that we saw last episode. So they're holding the town hostage. So the Confederates hold the town hostage, and that's why they go there, and it looks like a ghost town until, the Confederates come out and reveal that. So William decides to offer to take them to the place they call their glory, right? And William says he knows the way to the glory. He says it's not just a word, like it's an actual place, and I can take you there. Right, so he's trying to help out the people in the town ultimately, by trying to make this deal with the colonel. I'm not sure his name, but I just know him by the colonel. With kind of a gross mustache on his on his face there. But yeah, so he makes this kind of deal, and then later in the night, him and the colonel talk at the table about what their glory is and where they're gonna go. And this was awesome. This was an awesome scene here. One of the best scenes in the whole episode, I would say. Probably some of the only action in the episode as well. So William starts having these memory flashes all of a sudden, right? He's talking at the table with the colonel, and he's starting to have these, flashes of memory, thinking about different things. And then, sees Lawrence's daughter there, and you see all of a sudden, like, he's trying to, he's starting to feel, for the host, for, I don't know, like, before, he didn't really seem to have any sympathy for the host. He'd just kill him, even cut off the one, guy's head, the top of his head, right, last season. So, I think we're seeing a little bit of a different William here with this new storyline, with the stakes being so real, right? So then the colonel talks about death, and how he serves it, and knows it really well, right? So he's saying, I know death, I serve death, and all this stuff. And then he makes Lawrence's wife walk out in the rain to him, and obviously she's very nervous, and, everything's happening here, and she's very scared. So William makes his move and he takes it into his own hands here, and he tells the colonel, you didn't recognize him sitting across from you this whole time. And he's talking about death, right? So the colonel's saying, I know death, I recognize it, I serve it, death is me, pretty much, I know death. And William says, you didn't recognize death, him in himself sitting across from you this whole time. And then William, makes his move. He slashes him with a broken shot glass in the neck there. He grabs his gun and he shoots the other men down. This is just a really quick sequence here and a really awesome sequence. So shoots the other men down, gets them all, and then he tracks down the colonel at the very end here and lets Lawrence finish off the job, and he shoots him with the rifle there, and it ended up being like it looked like a rocket launcher from this damn rifle. It was some sort of, advanced kind of weapon there, and definitely easily killing the colonel there. That's a really badass sequence. I really liked it, Lawrence finishing off the job there after what the colonel did to his wife. Pretty awesome. So then we see William and Lawrence this is like at the very end of the episode here. I think this is actually, was this the last scene of the episode? It might have been, actually. Of course, I'm going a little bit out of order. I'm just kind of sticking with one storyline at a time here. But yeah, so then we see William and Lawrence at the very end of the episode there. They settled on their horses, right? They've kind of conquered the town. William has saved all of them. So they're moving on. And of course, they've gotten a few men because they want to support them. They want to help them after what William has just done for them. So they settle on their horses. They're riding. And then all of a sudden, the girl from the Taj Park, or the Bengal tiger hunting, who just escaped from the Ghost Nation, rides up upon them. So she approaches them, and we see her face, and she says, "Hi, Dad." And that's it. That's it. And then we see William's face. So crazy, crazy stuff. William's daughter. Wow, I did not guess that. I did not put that together. But pretty damn awesome, connecting these timelines and these storylines. And now, William's daughter is there. So it's going to be very interesting to see. And that was a really good way to end off the episode this week. Really awesome stuff there. Did not expect that at all. So then we get the part with Mr. Delos, or James Delos. So this was a big part of the episode. Again, this is one of the main reasons I watched the episode through almost twice, like almost 2.5 hours fully, because at first I didn't really totally understand all of this, but it really makes sense after I watched it again. So we see him going through his morning routine in this room again. We saw this at the very beginning of the episode. This is how they started before, I think it was before the intro played, right? This was like kind of the intro sequence to the episode. So he's going through this morning routine that we saw in the beginning again, and William comes in and talks with him. So again, we saw this at the very beginning of the episode, and we left off at the very beginning that he gives him a letter, right? So then in this scene, finally, we see him open up the letter and read it, right? So we see that he's part of some sort of experiment, right? So that's the idea we get. So it has been 7 years that he has been in that room. That's what William says, at least. And then at the end of the conversation, William walks out and tells the woman to terminate the experiment, and she turns Mr. Delos off, right? And then the fire starts, and they kind of, terminate the experiment. They turn it all off, and they burn everything down, right? To kind of, cleanse the room or whatever. So that was very interesting. So we get that little conversation there. And of course, then later on, we see another scene, and that's kind of more important. That's why I went through that one really quickly. So then I'm asking at this point, I'm like, did they turn his body into a host? Was he a host, right? Like, so many questions being raised here that we haven't really been introduced to something like this so far in the show. This is kind of a new idea. I really like it, but it's a new idea, right? New to us. So then later on, we see William come back as an old man, as we know him now, and he talks to Mr. Delos again, or James Delos. So obviously we know a lot of time has passed between this, right? So we know that he's not a human, right? Like, because there's no way he could last that long. He looks the exact same. So they talk again about the same stuff. So it's the same conversation again, pretty much. But then William talks about his mind not connecting with his new body. So he makes this statement. So then I question, so they made him into a host but kept his human body, sort of thing. Like, I didn't totally understand this, right? Or kept his human mind and turned his body into a host. So, of course, we get an answer a little bit later in the episode, but not fully. I mean, I still think this is kind of a mystery at this point. But something is up here, right? Something is going on here. And obviously, William, is testing this out. So, he was the first trial, we know that. right? So Delos is the first trial at what they're trying to do here, this technology that Delos, the company, is trying to explore. So William says it's the 149th time they have brought him back. So that means, obviously, that he is a host, right? They're doing this experiment, and it's the 149th time that they brought him back and trying to do this experiment. So obviously, with the termination, every time they terminate, they have to rebuild them and make it a new, a new thing. So that's very interesting, right? Very interesting there. So 149th time. And then Williams says, I'm starting to think this whole enterprise is a mistake. People aren't meant to live forever, right? So that's what they're trying to do with this technology. They're trying to, prolong a human's life and make them live forever with their mind, not necessarily their body, right? And he says, everyone prefers the memory of you to the man yourself. And I think that applies to, a lot of people, that he's talking about, but he's mainly just referring to Delos in that, conversation. So then he tells them that Logan and his daughter have both died, and then says some men are better off dead. And he says, James Delos, he says to him, like, you're better off dead, right? Because you didn't really help your son or your daughter. You weren't a good guy, sort of thing. And Logan and his daughter are both dead now. And that's interesting because we obviously knew Logan as a character in last season, and we find out that he overdosed and he's dead now in this scene. So I'm not sure if we'll see Logan again. We may, but at least now we know that he is dead. He has died now, and he says he couldn't handle reality, and so he killed himself. So that's very interesting too, right? So he says, yeah, some people are better off dead, and he's meaning him, but again, I think he's kind of talking about other people too. And so William, the older one, of course, he walks out of the room, closes the door behind him, and then we see it all connects back. Westworld, man, this is an amazing show. He closes the door to the whole room where Delos is in that experiment kind of capsule, I would say, or dome that they have set up there. He closes the door, and it's the exact same door that Bernard and Elsie are at now in the secret facility. So I love the connections with this show. They're so good at doing this. I have to say, I kind of expected it. It wasn't like a huge, surprising twist that they were at the same door, but it was still pretty cool to see, throughout the whole episode here, we get this Mr. Delos stuff playing out with the experiment, and then at the very end of the episode, we see Elsie and Bernard kind of play it out. So, really cool. So to finish off the recap here, so Elsie and Bernard walk into the room, and so the alerts are going off. They find, everything broken, glass shards everywhere. So obviously something has happened here, and I believe the door was open too to the room that Delos is in, the experiment thing. So we know obviously that something has gone wrong here, and obviously it's not good, right? So they find the guy who was there with William inside, dead on the floor. So the Asian guy that was there, who was running the experiment or whatever, the old man William walked out and said, terminate to him, right? And he was in there. He's dead on the floor, presumably. So that means that either James must have killed him, right? Or at least he died or something. Someone else killed him. But anyways, that was really kind of scary because we know that he was alive just a little bit ago and now he's dead on the floor. So crazy stuff there. So Mr. Delos comes off of his bike, and his face is all scratched up with scars and all the glass and stuff like this. It was really crazy to see. It was that would hurt a lot, right? So obviously we know, his body is one of a host, but his mind is presumably still there as a human, right? So anyway, so he gets off this bike, and of course we saw him get off the bike earlier in the episode, so it really just replays here, and he attacks Elsie right away, but Bernard is able to defend her, takes Delos down, and then Delos talks a little bit about the devil, right? He says, that there's only the devil, there's no, God and stuff like that, the God is just a reflection of under or something like that, but anyways, he's talking about hell and the devil and all this stuff, so what has happened to him? Something has gone wrong here with his mind, and of course he's been left there. William has not, come and talked to him. No one has come and talked to him in a while, of course. So I think he's just kind of going insane at this point, and that's kind of where he's, his face all scratched up, everything's broken inside, and he's still going about his morning routine, though, on the bike, right? So kind of mysterious here. So they're able to get out after Bernard kind of puts him down. Not puts him down, but, kind of gets him to the ground, and is able to kind of, take care of him in a way, right? So they get out, and Elsie terminates the room and James Delos. So so the fire, of course, starts, and then, he is presumably burned, and that is basically the end of the experiment, right? That is the end. So then they're walking out of the room afterwards, and of course, that's a really, kind of a bigger sequence in the show, of course. But again, the importance of it, I mean, the more important stuff is this conversation afterwards. So Elsie says, please tell me that was a host and not a human, right? And then Bernard says, I think it was both. That person was James Delos. So really, really interesting conversation here. So then Elsie says, so they printed his body and they copied his mind onto a control unit. So that's where we kind of get a more of a clear answer here as to what happened. So they're making his body a host, right? Making a mechanic body, but they're copying his mind to some sort of unit and putting that in this host body, so that he still exists, sort of, but it's not his body. So anyways, and that's how he can live forever, sort of thing, right? But Bernard says, by the looks of it, unsuccessfully, right? It doesn't look like it was successful in the way that they did this experiment. But he says, but I think they intend to keep trying. So, yeah, right? Obviously, it would be a huge thing, and in technology to be able to do that. I don't doubt that they would keep trying, right? But obviously, Delos did not work out. So then Bernard starts to remember Ford sending him there to create a control unit for another human, but he can't remember who, right? So he's still having trouble with his memories. He can't remember who, but that's going to be a big thing. I hope we find out who it is next episode, because obviously that might lead to some more answers here. So he decides to go with Elsie. Elsie's going to go, I think, to this other side of the camp to work things out and see what's going on there. So he decides to go with her and help her. But then at the very end of the episode there, we see that he starts to remember that he was the one who killed all those people in there and caused exactly what had happened in there. Of course, Ford kind of forced him to, but he was actually the one who killed all those guys in there, the lab coats and everything, and probably caused the glass and the alerts going off in the room where Delos was there too. So really crazy stuff there. The memories for Bernard are coming back in waves here, and it's going to be really interesting to see. But anyways, wow, really, really cool thing there with Delos, and a really cool concept introduced. Alright, so in terms of a rating for this episode, I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. Again, I thought this episode just had kind of a slower pace this week compared to last week, of course. Last week there was quite a bit of action with that big battle, and then you had a few other things going down. But yeah, so no Dolores this episode, no Maeve this episode, and I don't know, I think that Maeve thing is a little bit unfortunate. I'm not surprised, though, because of the big, kind of teaser that they had of the Shogun world, right, with the samurai coming out at the end of last episode. So I wasn't surprised that we didn't see Maeve, but I just am kind of, disappointed that we didn't see her. Elsie is back. That was a big surprise to me. Like I said, maybe some fans were not surprised, but I was really surprised. And I do have to say, the actress who plays Elsie did look quite a bit different, though, I have to say. Usually Westworld is really good with that stuff, and I don't really have anything to say about that kind of stuff with behind-the-scenes kind of actor, the looks of people. But I have to point that out. She did look a little bit different than the way she looked in Season 1. Now, that's not an easy thing to do for a show, right? I mean, that actress was probably, she was not in front of the camera for about a year, right? So obviously she's going to change. So it's really difficult to make, the actresses and the actors look exactly like they were a year ago in the show, right? But I do think she did look a little bit different, and most of the other characters, they were able to do a good job with that. But she, that was something that stuck out. But again, I mean, that's a minor thing. It's not, that's no knock on the writers or the cast, and definitely not the actress. I mean, she did a great job in this episode coming back. And like I said, yeah, slower pace. And I really like the interesting storyline now going on with Mr. Delos, the sort of the human and host combined sort of thing. I really like that concept, and I hope that we see a little bit more of it. I think there's some going on with the Abernathy host here, and that may have actually been a real human too. I'm not exactly sure, but I think something's going on with the Abernathy host, because why else would Delos want it, right? There's something else going on with that. So that is kind of my prediction for next week, if you want to say. But yeah, I think he might be the other human that Bernard was trying to make this control unit for. And that might be why Delos wants it so bad. They want this technology back. So yeah, very interesting storylines going forward here. Again, like I said, a little bit slower pace this week, but really still enjoyed it. So yeah. Favorite character for this one is going to be William, played by Ed Harris. And I forget the actor who plays younger William. I forget his name at the moment, but he does a great job too. And he actually was I would say he was in like a good 5-10 minutes of this episode, so he was good. But Ed Harris, of course, is kind of the William that we know now, and he was great in this episode. The action sequence there with him and the Confederalos with the Colonel. Really awesome stuff there, and Ed Harris is doing a great job. Like I said, really awesome stuff there. He's really great, and the character with William, we'll have to see where he goes on. I thought this episode was kind of the first time, or one of the first times that we saw him kind of feel sympathy for the hosts, and we didn't really see that from him last season. So that's a very interesting development too. Is he going to be like that going forward? Is that going to change? We'll have to see. But yeah. So, anyways, guys, that'll just about do it for the review of Westworld Season 2, Episode 4 this week. Really liked the episode. But I'm really looking forward to next week's episode. I think it's going to be even better. I think we're going to see Dolores again. We're going to see Maeve again. We maybe might not see Bernard. I'm going to guess that. We're probably going to see William again, but very little. So anyways, that's just the way they're going with it this season. I'm not a big fan, but I do appreciate the way they're kind of, planning this out. But anyways, again, like I said, thank you so much for watching this review, and thank you so much for the support on the channel. I really, really do appreciate it. I can't thank you guys enough. A lot of subscribers recently, a lot of likes, comments, views, and all that stuff. So really, really appreciative of that. And, again, can't thank you guys enough. It's really awesome. So, working towards that goal of growing this channel and kind of making a family here, and, getting down to discussion and being able to collaborate with others, right, and talk about our favorite shows. It's really awesome. So so anyways, like I said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Should be on time, right? Should be Monday or Tuesday this week for Westworld Season 2 Episode 5.